I was perusing the New York Times this morning, and I came across a full-page ad, another one of those big-ass full-page ads that cost, I don't know, about $250,000 to run. And I got to share this with you. This is here's another clear example of how the capitalists in this country are berserk, sick, crazy, and destructive. Here's what it says. Here's the headline. Heard all about those economists who support raising the minimum wage? Take a closer look. And then the organization that runs the ad is the Employment Policies Institute. Then what they have here is a reproduced memo to President Obama and the New York Times editorial board from Employment Policies Institute regarding the 600 economists for a higher minimum wage that you keep referencing. And then what they do, they list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They list 8 of the 600 that recommend higher minimum wage for obvious reasons. They list 8 of them, and then they take a quote out of something these 8 might have written, something that they might have said. For example, here's an economist named Arthur McEwen. Here's a quote that the Employment Policies Institute lifted. Quote, as Marxists, we are committed to a rejection of capitalism, root and branch. Okay? Ooh! Now, what's going on here is something that I can remember as a kid, just barely. I can remember, I have this image of sitting on the floor playing, I guess, in the little apartment that we lived in. Well, I seem to remember my mother ironing my old man's shirts. And this is in the kitchen. And around the corner from the kitchen in this little living room that we had a tiny, tiny television. And on the television at the time were the Army McCarthy hearings. This is when Senator Joe McCarthy was accusing the Army of being chock-a-block with communists and the Eisenhower administration. And there were communists everywhere. This is during the Red Scare of the 40s and 50s, mid-50s. So, and I can remember, and I have a clear memory of this. I asked my mother about it. Of course, before she died, she didn't remember. But I can remember her saying this, sons of bitches, the dirty sons of bitches. I just remember that. What she was sons of bitches about was the filthy Republican attack on otherwise decent people. Now, in that particular instance, it was Army officers and the Pentagon were just loaded with communists, according to these rat bastards. Okay, that was a million years ago. So here we are now, and I come across this ad, and I start reading the quotes that the Employment Policies Institute has found that they want to pull out and use in order to turn off the casual reader to the idea of raising the minimum wage. Here's another one. David Kotz is this guy's name. The particular model of socialism pioneered by the Soviet Union undoubtedly brought significant economic and social progress. Red Scare. Here's one from Julie Mathai. She describes herself as, quote, Marxist, feminist, anti-racist, ecological economist. Okay? Here's the guy, Fred Mosley. Here's the quote they pulled. One of the foremost scholars in the world today on Marxist economic theory. Here's another one, Peter Boehmer. I consider Chavez a great leader. Here's another one, Renee Toback. Marxist analysis is as useful today as it ever was. Here's another one from Richard Duboff. The United States is the world's #1 rogue. Okay, so here it is, this big-ass full-page ad in the New York Times, and it has these quotes pulled out of speeches or memos or books that these economists have written. And down at the bottom of the full-page ad, it says, many of the 600 economists you rely on, New York Times and Obama, are radical researchers or full-time employees working at union-backed groups. Of those who support a higher minimum wage, 45% don't specialize in labor economics. You can listen to them, or you can listen to the consensus of 85% of the best economic research. Then they have an asterisk after the word research, and in print you can barely read the asterisk, two names. Okay? So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, I'll be a son of a bitch. It's the old Red Scare tactics again. And then I thought, it's down the bottom, it says paid for by the Employment Policies Institute. Oh, really? Well, let's go to the internets and find out what the Employment Policy Institute is. Where is it? Oh, it's in here someplace. Yes, here it is. The Employment Policies Institute, according to Wikipedia, you talk about an AstroTurf organization, is a fiscally conservative, nonprofit American think tank, stay with me, that conducts research on employment issues like minimum wage and health care. The Economic Policies Institute was established in 1991 and has been described as, quote, a nonprofit research group that studies issues of entry-level employment, end quote. According to SourceWatch, EPI, Employment Policies Institute, is one of several front groups created by one Richard Berman of Berman and Company, a Washington, D.C. public relations organization that lobbies for the restaurant, hotel, alcoholic beverages, and tobacco industries. The Employment Policies Institute has no employees of its own. Instead, according to the New York Times, Berman and Company charged this non-existent nonprofit institute for the services its employees, the public relation firm, provides to the so-called institute. The charity evaluator, Charity Navigator, has issued a donor fraud advisory concerning Employment Policies Institute. They're a fraud. EPI should not be confused with the older, similarly named Economic Policy Institute, which is a liberal think tank advocating for low to moderate income families in the United States. Okay, that's the Employment Policies Institute. It doesn't exist. But the Richard Berman Company, the Berman and Company, does exist. It was Richard Berman who made up the Employment Policies Institute. Nobody works at that institute. There's nothing there. It's a P.O. drop someplace. But the Berman and Company, in 1991, Richard Berman created the Employment Policies Institute to research entry-level work issues and argue, quote, the importance of minimum wage jobs for the poor and uneducated, end quote. That translates to opposing minimum wage hikes on the theory they would reduce employment. In 1996, Berman was funded by tobacco giant Philip Morris to fight the movement to add non-smoking sections to restaurants. In the 90s, Berman was the president of Beverage Retailers Against Drunk Driving. No, it's not what you might think. It was an organization formed to combat Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Joe Berman argued for tolerance where it concerns social drinking and the raising of the alcoholic content level for someone who stopped for drunk driving. He also has worked as a consultant for the Minimum Wage Coalition to Save Jobs. Right. Berman has appeared on 60 Minutes, CNN, in support of his organization. 60 Minutes has called him the booze and food industry's weapon of mass destruction. Labor union activist Richard Benziger gave him the nickname Dr. Evil. And Michael Kranish of the Boston Globe dubbed him a pioneer in the realm of opinion molding. And in September 2013, the Huffington Post included Berman on its list of members in, quote, America's ruling class hall of shame. All right, now that's Berman and the Employment Policies Institute. When we come back, a little bit on these communists whose quotes Berman pulled out and put in the full-page New York Times ad. 21 past the hour. So the guy that runs this full-page ad in the New York Times, trying to use Red Scare tactics, quoting 6 or 7 economists here, with an organization that he runs that really doesn't exist. It's just a name that he made up. So the guy is another goddamn liar, just a complete, filthy, stinking, pro-capitalist, right-wing liar. And if he wants to spend $250,000 to put an ad in the New York Times, I guess he has a certain right to do that, but it's not his money. He gets his money from the filthy, stinking right-wingers who back organizations like his that spawn other organizations that don't exist anywhere. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the people that he feels are real radicals, in case Obama and the New York Times editorial board don't know about these guys. First of all, Richard Duboff, they quote him. Where's his quote that they pull out? The United States is the world's #1 rogue. All right, who is Duboff? He's a professor emeritus of economics at Bryn Mawr College. Currently, he's a labor economist at Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. He's been an industry economist at Internal Revenue Service, supervisory economist at Bureau of Labor Statistics. His education is University of Massachusetts at Amherst, University of Iowa. Not bad. All right, how about Peter Boehmer? They quote Peter Boehmer, too. He's quoted as saying, "I consider Hugo Chavez a great leader." Ooh. All right, Peter Boehmer. He has a BS in economics and mathematics from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a PhD in economics from the University of Massachusetts. His expertise is economics and political economy. His interests include political economy, economics, comparative social systems, economic and social inequality, Latin American studies, radical theory, Marxism, social movements, 1960s, political economy of racism, labor studies, third world studies, and left history. Ooh. All right, let's take a look at another one here. David Kotz. Where's Kotz? Here's what this filthy, stinking right-winger pulled a quote of Kotz. He has this quote: "The particular model of socialism pioneered by the Soviet Union undoubtedly brought significant economic and social progress." Okay, David Kotz is the Champion International Professor, Department of Computer Science at Dartmouth. He currently serves as Associate Dean of the Faculty for the Sciences, previously served as the Executive Director of the Institute for Security Technology Studies. It just goes on. He is an elected member of Phi Beta Kappa, a Fulbright Fellow. After receiving his A.B. in Computer Science and Physics from Dartmouth, he completed his Ph.D. in Computer Science from Duke, returned to Dartmouth to join the faculty. Boy, what a bunch of dangerous people, right? Okay, who else do we have here? Oh, yeah, Julie Mathai. Here's what her quote. She describes herself as a Marxist, feminist, anti-racist, ecological economist. All right, what about Julie? She has both a PhD and an MA in economics from Yale, a BA in economics from University of Michigan, and a diplôme études économiques générales from the University of Paris. She won the Outstanding Book in Human Rights Award from the Gustavus Meyer Center for Race, Gender, and Work in 1992. A Danforth Graduate Fellowship, Yale University, Honors, University of Michigan, Honors, University of Paris, Dean's List, Stanford, Mellon Faculty Development Award. It just goes on and on. Okay. Phi Beta Kappa also. She is, what else is she? Also Professor of Economics, Wellesley College, Associate Professor of Economics with tenure at Wellesley College, Acting Instructor, Yale University, Research Assistant, Center for Research on Economic Development, University of Michigan. She has written many books, the titles of which are just too many to go into. Now, a little bit about Richard Berman. I already told you a little bit about him. And by the way, he graduated from Transylvania University in Kentucky, I think, with a BA in public relations, I think. He is a tobacco industry shill, an oil industry shill. Anybody who will pay this son of a bitch money, he will go ahead and make up the most outrageous lies he can make up. So I just thought you might be interested in hearing. You know, you see these ads all the time. I do these full-page ads, and they just look so official, right? And then when you do the research on this little sewer, the Employment Policies Institute, and you find out it doesn't even exist. It's just a name, and there are no employees. That when the economic employment or the Employment Policies Institute issues a statement, it's written by the people who work for Richard Berman. I mean, it's just incredible. So when you compare Berman and his lack of education, his blatant stupidity, his willing to say anything, do anything to undermine everything that is decent and good, every effort. He works actively to destroy the planet. And then when you compare him to the people he criticizes, wow, just thought you might want to know. We'll be right back.